I got all the emails from the elections office, but I'm wondering if yeah, here it is. And then this was the email I sent back to her, just letting her know that we set it up. And I did mail out notices to everybody, and I sent them to the addresses that we had on record at the time.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Edgar Baker. Thank you for doing that, Ms. Dine. Thank you. We're here to, I'm Edgar Baker. This is Ms. Patricia Jackson, Mr. Ryan Hamlin, and you guys, if you don't know, this is our Board of Elections Supervisor, Ms. Barbara Cook. We're here this morning to address the challenge eligibility, electors eligibility, and it was challenge date received was August the 5th, 2024. Name of challenger, Ms. Janet Carter, and she challenged per election code 221-229.
And I need to make a correction on that because being this is my first challenge, it is actually 221-230.
Well,
because the voters are already registered, they're not registering. Secretary of State said that was not an issue. I could go in and amend that code.
the only thing was when I read, we'll talk later.
Because they're basically the same, but one is just a 229 challenges a voter that's registering to vote.
Correct.
And then 230 challenges a voter that is already registered in our system, and this is what we have for these 15.
So it's kind of like the directory of where it's at in the code book?
Right.
Sir?
It's kind of like the directory where it's at in the code
Right.
book? So,
Right.
Right.
That's the code that it is.
Now,
I think that's what you're asking.
when I read 229 and I read 230,
Mm-hmm.
230, kind of my interpretation would be that if you challenge that person at the poll prior to them voting on that day.
Right. Well, I mean, they have to do that with both of them. Because if I'm not mistaken, there is a change to this code that gives it a deadline. And so that's why she put it in when she did. Because there was a, what is it, Janet, 60 day? 90 day. It has to be done within 90 days of the election.
Okay. Now the 90-day, which code are we referencing when we talk about the 90-day, Ms. Carter?
They put that on both of the 229 and 230. But this book is not updated to show
To
that
reflect
from my,
that. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So there's a new code book, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir, they just hadn't put it out yet.
Yeah, because this is 2023. I don't see the 90-day here.
Right.
I think it might be in the bill I brought.
But I mean, so she made the
She made it in a
challenge,
timely manner, that
right,
part.
she
Okay.
made the challenge in a timely manner, and, I have the names of the challengers. I don't know, since this is my first challenge, don't know if we're supposed to read the names, but there are 15 voters, that are being challenged. I have sent emails out to all 11 election supervisors in Florida that are on the Florida list. I have a response back from each election supervisor who stated and sent me voter registration receipts on each 11 registrars in Florida,
Okay.
stating that they are now registered in Florida. Some haven't voted in Florida, but some are registered there.
Now, have any of those people that are registered in Florida, have they voted here recently in our past
None.
election?
None of the ones that are being challenged have voted in any of our elections recently.
Recently. Now, the other four, you said you have 11. What about the other four?
The 4 from North Carolina, I heard back on 2 of those. I haven't heard back on the other 2.
Please.
The other 2 electors. So, but I think Miss Janet has some information that she's going to be presenting, because I do know that it is in the code. It states that it's their responsibility to bring us proof of anyone that they're challenging. They're supposed to bring documentation showing why they're challenging it.
Right, that's correct. Okay.
And just to clarify, it's contacted with Florida, 11 of them had, is it change of registration in Florida, if I understand it correctly?
Yeah, they moved from Georgia to Florida. They registered to vote in Florida.
Okay.
But they are also still registered in Crawford County in Georgia. Now, Secretary of State has sent out a notice of change of address to each one of these. The 40 days has lapsed, so each one of these are inactive in our system. However, Georgia law says that even though they're inactive, if they come in and show proof that they live where they live, that the registration says they live, they can still vote under an inactive status
In Georgia.
in Georgia.
Okay.
So then at that point, you know, they would be advised to cancel the registration in Florida.
Okay.
And we would notify Florida.
That they voted.
Yeah.
This is
Now that we know.
This is your copy of this? Let's
You can have that copy if you
No,
want.
I was just need something to write. I'll write on this. That's your copy. I'll
Okay.
write on this. Okay. So of those 11 that you verified that are now registered in Florida, have you and Ms. Carter had any conversation about those 11 yet?
No.
And the other 2 that you are in, is it North Carolina, South Carolina?
North Carolina.
North Carolina?
There's 4.
4 in North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So, have her sent her information?
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is.
Did they leave the mics from the meeting last night?
Sounds like that, sounds like the PA is on back there.
I don't want us getting in trouble by the judge. Oh my goodness. Janet, do you wanna present your findings? Or
I
stuff?
do.
There's a chair right there if you wanna.
Now, I had made copies for the board members,
Okay.
the people,
Okay.
and also, just so y'all know, it's a copy of the people and a copy of the Georgia GOP database that shows that the Secretary of State's office apparently knows that these people have moved, because this information pulls from the Secretary of State database, and every single one of them, it's marked on there has moved. And
Right.
we don't mark anything, this is view only for us. So,
Right, the Secretary of State gets a notice from the United States Postal Service, of an address change. So then
Thank you.
they send out the notice of change of address that I told you was sent out. Thank you, ma'am. And then once that notice is sent out, they have 40 days to respond to that notice, to tell us, you know, yes, I've moved, this is my new address, or no, I haven't moved, I'm still at this current address. If they don't reach out within that 40 days, then they go into what they call an inactive status. And that's where they're at right now.
On our roll there.
On our roll, they're inactive, all 15 of them. So, but I think Miss Janet's concern is that because they're inactive and because Georgia law states that they can come in if they prove that they are a resident still of Georgia and they live at that address that we have on file, that they can still vote, right?
That's a concern,
Okay. I decided to just type up my comments because of my detailed nature. I have a tendency to get off on rabbit trails and things, and I wanna stay on point. So I'm just gonna read this. I don't prefer reading. I like to speak from the heart, but anyway, that's what I decided to do. So thank you to the election board for giving me the opportunity to present voter address challenges today. This project began because the Crawford County Republican Party mailed out letters to our voters prior to the May 24 primary, encouraging them to vote in that election and providing them with pertinent voting information. And just so you know, I brought it just to kind of show you. It was a cover letter. It was a listing of the candidates running with all the voting information, when early voting starts, where you vote on election day, and then questions that was going to be on the ballot on the back. So we had 170 of our letters returned undeliverable to us. And I just brought just a small sampling. Some were returned because they have a post office box. Some were returned because the, mail carrier wrote vacant on it. This one is the craziest one to me. This one was returned saying that is, I can't say this word, illegible. They cannot read the writing. This is beautiful handwriting on here, but it's in cursive. So that's sad. That is very sad. So I took all of these one by one, went to the database to see why were these returned, what was the problem. So in my research, I discovered that the 15 that I'm challenging today have registered to vote in other states, Florida and North Carolina, with 8 having already voted in these states. So my purpose is simply to help us move toward the cleanest voter rolls possible, which list only lawful voters. Every unlawful vote dilutes the vote of a lawful voter. My focus is on valid residential addresses. To be clear, in no way am I accusing these voters of any intent to do wrong, nor am I saying that the Crawford County Board of Elections has done anything wrong. I have always had complete confidence and trust in our Board of Elections office and know that our Board of Elections supervisor and her board operate with honesty, integrity, and transparency. Although the Georgia Secretary of State has responsibility for the voter rolls statewide, this does not relieve the Crawford County Board of Elections from the legal responsibility of cleaning up our county voter rolls. Indeed, this voter challenge allows us to get it right in Crawford County. As a voter in Crawford County, I feel responsible to try to correct problems that I see, and I ask the election board to join me to make our voter rolls as clean as possible. For the record, this should be a nonpartisan issue because we should all want free and fair elections regardless of our stance on candidates, issues, and policies. Initially, when gathering this information, I did not look to see their voting record because it did not matter to me. What matters to me is that we have the cleanest voter rolls possible. That I had somebody that knew I was going to be doing this ask me, and I didn't check it. But then I got to thinking, I said, well, let me just go look just out of curiosity at this point. So here's the breakdown. Of those 15, 1 has a Democrat voting record. 3 are listed as swing voters. So 11 are Republicans. So this is not a partisan issue for me. In addition, of these 15 voters, 13 are listed as inactive and 2 are listed as active voters. I make no distinction between the active voters and the inactive voters. It is meaningless because all a voter must do to move from inactive to active is request a ballot or show up to vote. If a voter is disqualified due to not having a valid residential address in Crawford County, the voter does not belong on either the active or inactive voter list. They need to be removed completely from our voter rolls. I am only challenging the residency qualification in the Georgia Code, and you all have this piece of paper because I felt like it'd be easier for you to follow along so I don't have to read out all the code information. A resident of this state and of the county or municipality in which he or she seeks to vote. Today, my challenges apply to voters who have filed a United States Postal Service change of address form indicating their permanent residence is in another state, who all 15 have registered to vote in another state, and 8 of the 15 that have already voted in another state. So for these challenges, the qualifications for a voter under Georgia law apply, especially those which deal with residency. So, under that code listed on your paper, the following laws apply to my challenge of residency. The residence of any person shall be held to be in that place in which such person's habitation is fixed without any present intention of removing therefrom. A person shall not be considered to have lost such person's residency who leaves such person's home, and goes into another state or county or municipality in this state for temporary purposes only with the intention of returning, unless each person shall register to vote or perform other acts indicating a desire to change such person's citizenship and residence. If a person goes into another state and while there exercises the right of a citizen by voting, such person shall be considered to have lost such person's residency in this state. For voter registration purposes, the Board of Registrars, and for candidacy residence purposes, the Secretary of State, Election Superintendent, or hearing officer may consider evidence of where the person receives significant mail, such as personal bills, and any other evidence that indicates where the person resides. According to case law, county registrars may determine whether residence requirements are met. County registrars are free to take reasonable and adequate steps to see that all applicants for the right to register to vote fulfill the requirements of bona fide residency. As the Supreme Court of the United States has emphasized, the defendant registrars are free to take reasonable and adequate steps, as have other states, to see that all applicants for the right to register to vote actually fulfill the requirement of bona fide residency. Registrars and Georgia have the power to require that voters be bona fide residents of the relevant political subdivision. And then there's code listed, the Board of Registrars of each county shall have the right and shall be charged with the duty of examining the qualifications of each elector of the county. So the Crawford County Board of Elections has the duty to determine whether voters meet the residency requirements under Georgia law and to protect the integrity of our elections from unlawful votes. I am not questioning the intent of the voters who remain on our voter list, even though they have filed a written document with the United States Postal Service indicating that they have moved their permanent resident to another state and have registered to vote in another state, and those who have voted in another state. I am challenging the qualifications of these voters to remain on our voter roll without showing in what residence and precinct they live in Crawford County, given they have moved their domicile to another state as indicated by change of address form and registering to vote in another state, and 8 of those 15 have already voted in another state. How do we know what ballot to give them if we don't even know where they live? My desire is not to take away their right to vote, but to ensure that they vote where they are lawfully allowed to vote. As an elector in Crawford County, I am challenging the voter registrations of the 15 voters because they are residents in another state as indicated by their written United States Postal Service change of address form listing their new registration records documenting an elector move from Crawford County to 11 to Florida and 4 to North Carolina address, where they have also registered to vote and like I said, some of them have already started voting in the new state. Challengers are only required to present a preponderance of the evidence that a registrant has changed their legal residence. A person does not have to vote to be eliminated from the Crawford County voter roll. A change of address is enough, and voter registration in another state is more than enough evidence. I have gone beyond the requirements to prove these voters should not be on the Crawford County voter roll. These voters probably don't even realize that they are still on our voter roll and have no intention of voting in Crawford County. However, leaving them on the voter rolls opens the possibility that someone else could fraudulently use their voter registration to vote. It also causes us to have a resource of voters that should not be voting in Crawford County. These voters have given us evidence of an out-of-state residence and should be disqualified from voting in Crawford County unless they move back and establish a residence here again. The National Voter Registration Act of 1993, Section 8, requirements with respect to administration of voter registration, removal of names from voter rolls. Number 1 states a state shall not remove the name of a registrant from the official list of eligible voters in elections for federal office on the ground that the registrant has changed residence unless the registrant A confirms in writing that the registrant has changed resident to a place outside the registrar's jurisdiction in which the registrant is registered. The written documentation is a change of address form, voter registration history, and or voting a ballot. So finally, thank you for the opportunity to present these challenges to help clean up our voter roll. I'm just asking the Board of Elections to follow the law. To leave them on the voter roll invites unlawful votes and disputed elections. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I do have copies of the letters that I mailed out. We did get a phone call Monday from 2 of the electors on the Florida list. It was a man and a woman, man and his wife. We have sent them the cancellation request to cancel their Georgia voter registration. So once we get those back, which we could do it before, after this hearing, and then just document that in the file. Now, I have done some research, and like Janet said, the voter can come in and request to vote under an inactive, show the driver's license, showing that they are still Georgia on their driver's license, okay? So I've done some digging and some research, and I found some forms that other counties use. We may want to have the county attorney look at these forms, but what we would do is we would send these forms to the polls during any election. If somebody came up that showed up in their poll pad as a challenged voter, or somebody came in that had been sent an absentee ballot, but they decided to come in to vote, or they hadn't received their ballot yet, so they decided to come in to vote. I've come up with this form first is a notice of eligibility. They would have to fill out this form, and I didn't make more copies of it, but sorry. They would have to fill out the voter eligibility form to officially state that yes, this is my address. They sign it, we sign it, notarize it, and then it's an official document that if we later find out that they gave us fraudulent information, you know, we could go further. This also is a residency affidavit that they would have to fill out along with that. And that's just on part, excuse me, that's just on part on the challenge voter. If it was a lost ballot, then we would have them fill out this form. even though we have a form that we let them fill out for a lost ballot already, I'm just wondering if,
When you say lost ballot, you talking about a lost absentee ballot? Or you
yes,
talking-
lost
okay.
absentee ballot that
So
they
we need to
received in the mail.
somehow correct that to actually identify as, when you say lost ballot, what type of ballot it is. That was the only thing I've on that, but, okay, I was just asking the question, okay.
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 So in doing that, and sending these forms out to the polls, what we would do is have our poll manager sign this official oath of deputy registrar. It would just give them the ability to sign these forms. Unless the board wants the poll manager to tell those individuals that have lost their ballot or are a challenged voter that they would have to come see me first before they vote. But then I kind of question that because I don't want to make it seem like we're telling people that they can't vote. So I'd rather give the poll manager just a day deputizing them to say, they can see the documentation, they can fill out the forms, they can sign the forms, and then we're within code because they've signed the oath.
On the deputy registrar, I need to review that before I make a decision on that today.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. We'll look at that, and like I said, we may even want the county attorney to look over them
We do,
before we make it official.
right.
But I do think it's something that maybe needs to be implemented before November.
I agree. I totally agree with the one about the eligibility, to lost ballot. I agree with that one. The only thing I would say that before we publish or make any of these, public, we have our county attorney review them for accuracy and legality.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree that we need to have something to be able to challenge the voters when they come in. And, so I'm totally in agreement with that. We just need to have the county attorney review those. You
Okay.
can,
So I don't know if you wanna go down through each one of these name by name, if we need to publicly give the name, or just do
I
it
don't
voter
think-
one, voter two.
I don't think we need to publicly
I don't
give the
know.
name, but you said that you had two that had already returned their letters stating that they have,
Well, they haven't returned the letters, but we've mailed out the letter to them, so once they get them at their Florida address, they'll be sending those back to us.
and of the 15, have you mailed 15 letters total?
I've mailed 15 total letters out to each
Person?
person that, was challenged.
Okay, and you only received two back?
I've received one phone call, and he was calling for him and his wife.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, may I ask some questions?
sure.
Well, may I direct something to Ms. Carter, first of all, to clarify some of the timeline? Is that all right, Ms. Carter? I was just correct to make sure my notes right. This kind of challenge began because you sent out some, I guess, encouraging people to vote mailers
In the primary.
in the primary. Did that go to all households in the county? Was it particular political persuasion or, kind of trying to, the reason I'm asking that, cause I'm breaking down the numbers till I got to the different ones. I know you said, was it 170 that came back?
I don't know the relevance of needing to know who it was mailed out to, but I understand you saying how many come back.
How many come back?
We
Yeah.
didn't send them out to every registered voter,
Okay.
but they were sent out to Republicans, swing voters, and Democrats.
Okay,
That's
and
your
then
question.
I think 170 came back, and then that led to a search that came up with 15 names that I believe you said had different change of address, or were they registered different places?
In my search on these 170, which I've not completed my research on
Yes,
yet,
ma'am.
this change of address.
Okay.
I got confirmation that 15 of these that I had reviewed so far had completed a change of address with the United States Postal Service.
Okay, and then you said also 8 of those had showed that they had voted in other jurisdictions, is that correct?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and you'll see that on that, information that I handed out.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
lists the voter, it's 3 pages, but it lists the voters, all the voters' information, their name, their address here in Crawford, their voter ID number, and
Mhm.
then on another page it lists, when they completed the change of address form, where they said they were moving to,
And
when they registered in the new
we were gonna get
state.
into all that
Okay.
Okay.
after his question.
Okay, and I was just, to Ms. Cook, because I'm interested, because I'm trying to figure out, to sustain a challenge to the voter roll, I'm interested to see, like, what types of evidence will qualify, and what is the evidence threshold to make a, were we doing a removal today possibly, or?
Not today.
Not today, okay.
Not today.
Well,
But-
the board would make a decision today on what to do.
Right.
Okay.
And then I would present it to my liaison just to confirm that we can go in and cancel
Okay.
them.
Right.
With sufficient evidence,
Okay.
it is stated that we can cancel them. And since we do have proof that they are living and registered, and I have found that some of them do, I haven't researched all of them. But some of them are getting, the exemptions, through the tax assessor's office in Florida because they have purchased homes there. So it's valid that they have moved.
Okay. Because I'm just, I don't mean to badger anyone with questions. I just, still learning and will make sure I'm thorough.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to see if, like, what's that kind of magical threshold we're looking for in terms of, okay, this is, and I know we're not making the removal thing today.
Well,
But
they will make the decision today whether they delete them or not.
Okay. And I'm just
Yeah.
looking for what the
We-
magic line is for us to make that decision.
Yeah.
Once we go through this hearing,
Mhm.
then they'll go to the board meeting and they'll make a decision on what they're going to do at that point.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Carter.
So just to start with the 2 that I heard from, and I don't know how to do this without stating their names, so,
Could you?
Column 1 and 2, number them.
let's see.
I think in juvenile court, I think they do what, initials maybe, would that work?
We're just gonna do numbers. And,
Okay,
we
numbers.
got you.
So number 10 and 11 on your first list that she gave you on the longest list, those are the 2 that have contacted us, and we have sent them a cancellation request. So I'm fairly confident that they're going to send that back and cancel their voter registration.
Okay.
Starting with number 1 on that same list. I received an email from the county registrar in that county, which is Gadsden County. She did send me a list of their voting history report. The last time they did vote was in the 2022 general election. The Florida state law states that they cannot send us a copy of the signature. But she did send me the registration receipt showing that they are indeed registered.
In Florida.
So being that they're actually voting, my ask to the board is that we cancel that voter.
So, she voted the last time was in 2022?
That was the last time she voted, yes.
That was in Florida.
Mm-hmm. And as we know, there's not a lot of people that vote in the primaries or in a runoff or even in just a special county election. A lot of people say, well, I don't know any of those people. And instead of taking the initiative to get to know who those people are on the ballot, going to local chamber events where they have a meet and greet or something like that, they just don't do that. And so most people just vote in the general.
Hence why we send our letters out.
Okay. The next one?
So number 2, make sure I got the right one. The registrar said, I've attached the voter in question's voter registration receipt. She registered to vote in Walton County, Florida at the DHSMV office. We do not have an application in her record. She is still registered in Georgia, but she is inactive and doesn't appear to have voted in Georgia since registering in Florida. She actually registered, let's see, July 5th of 2019.
Doesn't sound like the system
And she
is
didn't,
working.
ma'am?
Doesn't sound like the system is working.
So she actually has not voted, from my understanding, from what I received. But
She has not voted in Florida.
not that I'm aware
And
of.
she last voted in Georgia when?
2018. 2018. It was a November 2018 election. It was right before she moved in 2019. So I'm confident that we can.
Okay. We'll hold that one. This one I'm okay with, but let's hold that one so I can do more research. Next.
Thought I had these in order. Okay, so number 3 on the list. This one has never voted in Clay County. And she again says that Florida law does not allow for providing the voter signature as well other personal information. And she included a redacted registration receipt. She registered in August 19th of 2021.
In Florida.
Yes.
She last voted in Georgia when?
I don't have her last date.
Okay. So, let's hold that one also.
So number 4 on the list, I received his voter registration. He registered April 11th of 2022. He actually voted in the presidential preference primary in March of 2024
In Florida.
in Florida.
That one will go over here in this stack over here. The ones that, if you other one, the ones that you see me putting to the left, those are ones that we have no doubt about. They've already voted in Florida. The only ones I'm holding over to the right are the ones that I'm not sure about, if you understand what I got going on.
And these are the ones you're gonna talk to the county attorney about?
Right.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So in reference to, what are we at, 5?
Yes.
He is registered voter in Putnam County, Florida. They didn't have a voter registration application on file. There again, they said that the signature of a voter registration application or a voter is exempt from the copying requirements of S 119.07 in parentheses 1 and S.24 in parentheses A. Article 1 of the state constitution. Therefore, we cannot by law provide a copy of the voter's signature. She did attach the registration receipt, and he has not voted in this election.
He last voted in Georgia. Do you have that?
I don't have that one.
We'll look at that one.
And Miss Janet may have that in her information. I'll have to look in just a moment.
Okay.
Let's see, that was number 5. Number 6. Her registration date was July 28th of 2022. She is an active registered, an active voter. She just voted in the August primary, and
That was in Florida, right?
we do have an actual cancellation notice. Which must have misprinted out on this one that was sent to us by this election office. I don't know if it's signed, but they did send one
To cancel this
to
person?
cancel that one.
And which number was this one again?
This was number 6.
Number 6. Okay. Thank you.
Number 7 on the list. She registered August 9th of 2022. So she is a registered voter, but I don't see where she last voted, and I don't have it for Georgia either.
Okay, so we need to do a little more on that one, just to make sure.
Number 8, he registered to vote May 10th of 2023. But that's all the information I have on him as well.
No
No voter
recent voting,
registration, no
registration.
voter history that I have on file. The next one on the list, they didn't send very much info. I'll say date. Registration date was November 3rd, 2003.
23.
Or 2023. I said, what did I
Yeah,
say?
you said
2003.
three, yeah.
2023, excuse me. And he is a resident of Florida.
And he last voted.
I don't have that information.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And then, of course, the last 2, like I said, theirs is on the way, but they have
They have identified themselves as being.
been identified that they're going to
They're
cancel.
going to cancel, okay.
And they also voted in Florida in March of 24.
Now let me go to I'm just gonna pull Janet's information to see if we can figure out on these ones that we're holding.
You looking for their voter history?
Last time they voted in Georgia.
I didn't screenshot that.
Okay. Let's see if there's any other pertinent information on here. Okay. So we'll hold those until you can speak to county attorney.
We'll discuss it more, and what we'll do, is that once we get, that's what I was very behind the right line.
I mean, I'm confident that,
Yeah, I'm also
we
confident.
we can get these people to, now that I have their actual Florida address, I can also mail them a cancellation form, and get that on record, but with the hearing, the county attorney can make the decision on how we move forward from there. The next list, I had not heard back from the elections office from that one. The second one on the list, I did hear back from, actually it's the second and third on the list that I heard back from. It's a household. Both have moved to Craven County. Both registered to vote in Florida. One registered April 13th of 2021. The other registered October 4th of 2021.
Give me those dates again.
So the second one registered 10/4/2021. The fourth one registered 4/13/2021. And then the fifth one on the list, I have not gotten any information from the elections office on that one.
You mean the fourth one?
I meant the fourth one, excuse me.
Okay.
So the second and third one, those are the dates,
are-
and then
Now, those two,
They're all in Florida?
those are all in North Carolina.
You said Florida.
now the two that
Y'all
you,
keep me straight,
the
I'm
two
sorry.
that you have, that you know are registered in North Carolina, give those to Ms. Jackson, please. Those are two, just keep them separated. Those, we still need to verify those two. So we have a total of, how many, Ms. Jackson, that we know we're gonna remove from the roll today? Well, as soon as she gets back to the office.
7.
So there's
Total 7 out of 15.
7 out of 15. Five of those 7 are the ones that are registered in Florida, and 2 are the 7 are the ones that are registered in North Carolina.
North Carolina, correct, yes, sir.
7 Florida, 2 North Carolina.
Yes, ma'am.
5?
5 Florida
Florida.
and
Two
2
North
North
Carolina.
Carolina.
All right.
Yeah, that's what she said, isn't it?
No, she
No,
said
she
7 and
said
2. 7
7.
and 2.
Oh, I thought she,
7 and 2.
Which 5 in Florida? 1,
1, 4, 6. And 7.
1, 4, 6, and 7,
7 and 10 and 11.
And 10 and
and
11.
10 and 11, okay.
So that's 8.
No, 1, 4, that's,
I mean 6. 2, 3, 4, 5.
you said
6.
1, 4,
1,
6,
4, 6.
10 and 11.
4,
Hold on, let me see this.
6. 10.
So you got 2 and 3 on the North Carolina list. Did you look, you
It's
marked
1,
down?
1, 4, 6, 10, and 11, not 7.
Yes, I thought you said 1, 4, 6, 10 and 11. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Alright, 1, 4, 6,
And then on the other list is 2 and 3.
2 and 3, yeah.
Okay. All right.
you said 1,
1, 4, 6, 10, and 11.
okay.
And then 2 and 3 on the other.
And 2 and 3 on North Carolina.
Mhm.
And all that is what the board will do is we will do a little more research. Our total intent is to remove these individuals from the roll, once we verify that they have actually located and moved to another residence. But we just wanna make sure we do our homework and do our due diligence to make sure that we don't do anything that's improper before we do anything.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
What makes a voter inactive? Is it the time period that's lapsed, like is it 6 years, 8 years, what makes it inactive?
Well, it depends on the circumstance. In the circumstance of a notice of change of address, like I said before, those people that we mail out a notice of change of address to have 40 days to respond to that notice. If we don't hear from them, if we don't get a response at all from them, kind of like assuming that they've moved. So we go ahead and move them to inactive. But it doesn't mean that, say you moved within county, because there are notices of change of address within county. So if you moved from Avery Road to Dixon Road, you didn't notify us. We send out that notice of change of address. It goes to the address we have on record to Avery Road. Well, if you haven't done a change of address with the post office, that generally comes back to us. So that 40-day window goes, and we send you inactive. Well, you come in to vote to the polling location where you now think you're registered because you're living on Dixon Road. Then as long as you can show proof of your residency, which is generally your driver's license, then they scan your driver's license, you go ahead and you vote. However, you have to vote provisional because you're not registered for that precinct.
So is there a time period when you become inactive that a list will automatically be scrubbed every year, every 2 years, or you just automatically, because it becomes inactive if you don't do anything? Is there
They
a
get-
scrubbing
if-
period?
Voter registrations get canceled. I don't want to misspeak, but they do get canceled after a certain period of time that you have not voted, and I think it's give me just a second, because I don't want to misspeak.
Yeah, 'cause I know sometimes like people will pass away or.
Well, in the case of somebody passing away, what generally happens is, once the death certificate is probated, or once the probate office notifies the Secretary of State, then we get a notice in our office through what we call our dashboard, and it's a vital records that tells us that those voters have passed away. So we go in, cancel that voter registration, and send a letter out to the family to the address that we have on file for that elector. And a lot of those come back because families don't continue to get mail at that residence.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
No, remember I said I hadn't
In
heard
that
from
same
them?
realm of things,
Um,
but
we have a question in the back. Go ahead.
in that same scenario that you were just talking about, but Mr. Smith lives at Dixon Road, and Mr. Smith doesn't move, he doesn't die, he doesn't vote for 4 years or 5 years. Is that a time frame that someone does not vote? Do they get removed from the voter
Yes.
registration?
That's what I'm.
And that's what you were trying to ask,
Yes,
right?
Right.
Yes.
Is there a time period
Yes,
if you don't
it's,
vote there,
it's
you
two
don't vote
election
now?
cycles.
And-
It's two, if you don't vote within 2 election cycles, then you go inactive.
So that's
That's
8
what you-
years,
yeah.
right?
Or
8 years.
Ask
So-
it, say 8 years,
Yeah.
2 presidential.
But
As a
being-
voter, you're just inactive. That
Yeah.
happens to me, I was
Yeah.
working,
So you're just
so
inactive, then you don't get scrubbed, you don't get
Correct.
deleted.
you
You're
get
inactive
It says, inactive list of electors. In addition to the official list of electors, the Secretary of State shall also maintain an inactive list of electors. Notwithstanding any other provision of law to the contrary, the names of electors on the inactive list of electors shall not be counted in computing the number of ballots required for an election, the number of voting devices needed for a precinct, the number of electors required to divide or constitute a precinct, or the number of signatures needed on any petition. However, any elector whose name appears in the inactive list shall be eligible to sign a petition and such petition signature, if valid, and regardless of the validity of the petition as a whole, shall be sufficient to return the elector to the official list of electors if the elector still resides at the address listed on the elector's registration records, and shall be grounds to proceed under Code Section 21-2-234 to confirm the change of address of the elector if the elector provides a different address from the address which appears on the elector's registration records. As used in this code section and Code Section 21-235, the term no contact shall mean that the elector has not filed an updated voter registration card, has not filed a change of name or address, has not signed a petition which is required by law to have verified by the election superintendent of a county or municipality or the Secretary of State, has not signed a voter certificate, has not submitted an absentee ballot application or voted an absentee ballot, and has not confirmed the elector's continuation at the same address during the preceding 5 calendar years.
There you go.
But
So-
our voter rolls have people on them who have not voted in, I think, 25 years. I think that's
what I was wondering.
And so what they're talking about is there's two separate, do you mind?
Mm-mm.
Okay, if I get it wrong, tell me. There's two topics, right? When does somebody go inactive, which really means nothing other than you just your name moves into an inactive role. You can still vote, you can still get a ballot, right?
The voter
Um,
knows no different when they go to vote.
Yeah, nobody's gonna tell you that you're inactive. But to remove someone from the roll is a completely different process. And there are people on the Crawford County voter rolls that have not voted since '99. Yep.
That's what I was wondering, at some point, does it automatically get scrubbed after?
We have very dirty voter rolls.
We have.
I tell everybody since I took over, if you find anything that you think is questionable, bring it to me. I don't mind looking at it. I don't mind pulling it up. I don't mind, sitting across from you at my desk and us discussing it and going over it. And if it's something I need to present to the board, then I'll definitely do that. But if it's something that, because Miss Janet has been by the office several times, and she's brought a list of voters that had duplicate voter registrations. However, they had already been deleted.
Right, that's what I'm kinda getting at. At some
Right.
point, there's an automatic, like.
And
flushing
some
rate.
things, but there's, it's like with everything else, there's going to be something that may,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so, and that's where we need help from people that if you move out of state, go ahead and send us a cancellation.
Absolutely.
If you change your address, even within county, you need to notify us. The voter registration is not something that people think of when they move.
I think a lot of people
They
have
just,
no idea that you're even supposed to do that.
Right.
Especially if you're staying within the same county,
right.
that you're supposed to.
But think about, if you move, you like I said before, if you're living on Avery Road, depending on what side of the street you're on, you're in District 1. But if you move over to Dixon Road, you're in a completely different district.
I don't think a lot of people know that. I've moved 30, 40 times as a military wife. I have never changed my voter registration registration, I am re-registered at a new place, and that
And see,
supposedly was
you
what
may still be
changed it.
registered in another state.
Yeah, I could still be registered in Pennsylvania.
That's
Well,
right.
I guess I bet.
The
better know
logical
that.
thing
You
would
might
be
vote it.
for the Board of Election
No, I didn't
offices
vote.
to communicate with each other. That would be the
Right,
logical
and
thing.
now
But
I
they
did
don't.
get an email.
And
I
us
did-
citizens, we don't realize that. We
I
just
did get an
think,
email where the Secretary of State is fixing to implement, there's gonna be a section in the registration that if somebody comes in and they are moving from out of state, that we automatically send a letter to that other state saying, hey, we've registered this person in our state. If you have a registration, please cancel it.
when's that gonna go into effect?
You would have to come by the office and let me pull up that email,
Okay,
Janet.
alright, that's
I-
fine. Is that in state as well? Like if I move to, Spalding County,
It's supposed to be for the state of Georgia.
for state of Georgia and outside the state of Georgia?
I don't know about the come by the office, we'll read the email,
Okay.
and then I will try to,
And I have another question. This copy that y'all have of all 15 from the, database that pulls from the Secretary of State voter list, every single one of them lists that this person has moved, so that tells me that the Secretary of State's office knows that this person
Right.
no longer lives in Georgia or at
Right.
this address. So
we can't, even though they know that they've moved, because they've got notice from the United States Postal Service,
Right.
they can't legally cancel them, from my understanding. It goes back to, people have to challenge the voters, and we have to go in, and there has to be documentation and evidence given, and we may not, we have so many, national change of addresses that go out at one time. There's really no way for us to keep up with how many came back, how many didn't come back in the local office.
So it sounds like the Secretary of State's office is derelict in their duty to keep clean voter rolls.
They have maintenance, they do maintenance on the electors list, and they were in the process of doing it before this election. That's why those notices went out.
Well, it seems like y'all's job should be simpler if the Secretary of State's office was doing what they should do, what you have read the law that they should be doing. If they're getting notices from the USPS, there should be a provision to take those people off rolls without
And
y'all doing.
that would come down from state election board changing how those things are handled, if I'm understanding things correctly.
That's correct.
Because all we can do is what's in this book, and that's, the Secretary of State can only do what's in the book.
Yeah, but the Secretary of State's obviously not doing it.
So without having somebody here from Secretary of State to defend themselves,
Oh, can you bring them? Can you bring them for
Have
a
we,
meeting?
I
Let's
can
talk
about it.
definitely ask.
can I interject, please? Have we addressed Ms. Carter's concerns as far as the voters on the challenge voters? Or is there something else that, Ms. Carter, that we need to address for you this morning?
I am assuming that those that, it was not decided to cancel, but to do more investigation.
Yes, ma'am.
That, y'all will be getting back
Yes,
with me
ma'am,
on
we will,
those.
yes, ma'am, we sure will. We will definitely let you know what the final decision is, on those. And the intent is to, like I said before, is to make sure that we clean the roll, and we will do due diligence to make sure that we verify that those people, it says that they are, and you have audit information, so we will just do our homework to verify that they have moved. Have her send additional information to them as far as showing that they need to cancel, or whatever we need to do as far as the book says, as far as letters to those individuals. And then we will do all to get it removed from the roll.
Okay, and I would just like to commend this board for being open-minded and willing to listen to me and my concerns and, the action that you've taken,
Yes, ma'am.
because I can assure you that not all election boards are like y'all, so I love my county, and I appreciate y'all working with me on this.
Well, our intent is, like you said, and I appreciate what you said earlier when you gave your presentation from the podium there, that we intend on being transparent, and we want to, and that was the way that this board was set up back when Ms. Stuck was on it, and we want to continue to do that. We're going to continue to be transparent. We're going to continue to be open, and anybody that wants to come to the board meetings, have any questions or concerns, you have board members you can contact. If we can't get the information, you have Ms. Cook, she can contact, and if not, we will make sure you provide you with the information that you requested to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
I just need a motion to, go into the board meeting.
Unless there's something else, Ms. Carter, I'll motion that,
I'll just real quick, I know we just, the comments that was just made about people really not knowing that if you move from here, just in town from here to here, you know, you've gotta go unless you, cause you could be in a different precinct, you know, a different area to vote in. Is that something maybe you guys can think about just putting it on the website, a quick, you know? like
Well, I'll put it on
reminder,
Facebook, you know,
reminder?
to remind people to go
Yeah.
in and check the My Voter page
Okay.
to verify their address, before, before the election. Just, I say, go on there, just look, just see what information we have, you know, if we don't have something in there right, you can go on to that page and make changes to your voter information through mvp.sos.ga.gov. And you can see everything that we have on
Okay,
you.
some of us are older and not so much into the internet.
Then you can stop by my
Put
office.
it in the Georgia Post. Now, I read the Georgia Post.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people in the county read the newspaper. They don't always get it right, I've noticed. But, put it in the newspaper. There needs to be education for registered voters that some old fogies like me will actually see.
I have put in there when early voting is and things,
Oh, I don't know when
logic
that
and
is.
logic and accuracy
Thank
is.
you.
But I don't think I've put in there about, confirming your address and
Yeah, I
your
never heard that
information.
one.
So, that would be something that the board maybe wants to put in there. So we'll discuss that and see.
Well, thank you for considering.
Our
Yeah, like
voters
Ms.
need education.
They need
that's
education.
for
Like Ms. Carter just said, the early voting is, starts October 15th.
And I know I read it in the paper.
But I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Hey, I just want to ask a question about the address thing. I know I can go on my page and check my name by using my information to see if I'm active or not.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is, I got this weird stuff coming from DC and the state saying, I showed it to you, with my address all filled out saying someone lives there that isn't registered, but no name put in. So my thing is, I want to put my address in somewheres and find out who's trying to use my address. Who's registered under my address? Is there a way to do that?
If you come to the office, we can put your address in and see who
If
all
there's
is
anyone
registered
else.
at that
Okay.
address.
I
And then
can't-
if somebody is not living there,
Okay.
then we can put them, as a challenge voter. Of course, you would have to send that in writing to me, to say that so-and-so, whoever is that's listed does not live there. And then we do a challenge just like we're doing
We did
today.
that once, I think it was with you and I, way in the beginning when you started, I don't know. I wasn't sure if there's something online, so nothing online.
Not that I'm aware of, just the My Voter page
That'd
where
be a
you can go and
statement.
enter your specific information, because when you go to put your address in, then it goes to put, if somebody else is living there, and registered under that, then it gives you their personal information, and we can't do that.
Right.
What's that?
It's a privacy thing.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just so weird, cause I got this thing
And it
saying
may
somebody
be-
lives there, and I'm going,
It may be that, somebody lived at your residence, they
Right.
moved, you purchased that home,
it's
and they haven't canceled their voter registration. Now, it may be that one's inactive, but
Yeah, so
you know,
very interesting.
you just you have to question it. You just have to question it, and then come by the office and sit down with me.
Yeah.
Like I said, anybody's welcome to walk through the door and ask me anything they want to, and I can pull it up and look at it, and I'll be
Does
more
the
than glad to.
Secretary of
Thank you.
State's office notify you when there's a change of address? Do they notify the Board of Elections superintendents?
We what they do, we have a dashboard. We get notices from Department of Driver Services. We get vital records notices. We get the voter registration applications that come into our office. And they do send us a list of the names that say, like if they send out a notice, they just sent out some notices of change of address for out of state. So they'll send us that list of names and all that in a spreadsheet to let us know that those are the ones that they've mailed out.
They mail the letter out,
They-
Secretary of State's office.
Well,
because
they
of the
send
change of
they
address.
send the notice of change of address down to us, but we can't see inside of it because it's already sealed up, so we don't see the actual internal address.
Yeah.
And so we put postage on it and we mail it out.
Okay, so all of these that showed has moved. y'all
At
have
some
been
point, we
notified.
had been notified because a notice of change of address did go out, and that none of them had responded within the 40-day window, and so they went inactive.
I have never gotten a notice from an election board that I was now an inactive voter because I moved. Never. And 30 or 40 moves as an adult.
You won't, it's just a more or less
It's
an
an
internal.
Internal
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah, but if you
You won't know until you actually, I mean, they send the notice of change of address out, and in that notice it tells you how many days you have before it goes inactive.
But being inactive means nothing. It's,
Yeah, but
it's
I've never
an
gotten a
internal,
notice
down
from
to
any
the 8
election
years,
board
that's
about
all.
anything.
you're not gonna. It's an internal mechanism.
Oh, I thought you
and
said
it-
you were sending them out to the people that moved.
That's moved, yes ma'am.
I've moved 30 or 40 times as a registered voter. I've never, ever gotten a notice from them.
And you've never changed your address with the registrar's
I have never
office?
changed my address. I know I've registered every place I've moved,
Mm-hmm.
except Germany. Then I was an absentee voter.
You call.
And I requested the absentee ballots. So I've been doing this for a really long time.
I've never gotten.
Sounds like there's some problems in
Not,
the system.
the only thing I can say is the address that is on the front of those notices when we get them is the address that we have on file at the time. So if you move from Crawford County to Bibb County, the address that will be mailed to is your Crawford County address.
Yeah, and you have a year when that stuff's forward.
And so it may come back to our office showing that it was undeliverable. Now, if you've done a change of address with the
Yeah,
post
I do.
office,
I
then it'll
always-
put a label on there, and then we mail that to your address. So we've had to mail it out twice.
Yeah, I've had that happen a lot with all those moves, but never from an election
It would
board.
it would be nice if we could mail those to the internal address that's in there that they know you've moved to, but they don't actually know you've moved. Yes, there's been something turned into the post office saying your address has changed, but they don't know that you did it. We've had several people, and my husband's one of them. We did a change of address from one location to the other because our daughter lived with us for a short time. When she did an address change, because her last name was the same as ours, it changed our mailing address to go to her new address because the last name was the same. So you can't trust it. You just can't trust that you've actually moved. You have to find out and document it.
So when my cell phone account got hacked, and I ended up with an address in Vermont, I think it was.
Right. See, if I had gotten notice that you had moved to Vermont and I just canceled your voter registration, you'd be kind of mad at me.
You know me better than that.
I know.
All right.
So, all right. Is that everybody's questions?
Any other questions? If not,
All right.
motion to.
I motion that we close this
We close the
meeting.
voter challenge meeting?